og alt det her med, at man ligesom bruger agenter til at udvikle med. Og i dag har vi Joshua Wheelock med, som har arbejdet på et framework i forhold til at arbejde med agenter, som vi gerne vil høre mere om her i Hvorbos podcast. Bare for at høre sådan, hvordan, altså fordi det er så meget up in the air lige i øjeblikket med hensyn til, hvordan vi udvikler med agenter og så videre. Vi har også den gode Andre Karpathy, som lavede det her tweet, hvor han sagde, at han følte sig bagud, og at det virkede som om, at den her teknologi med agenter, det var lidt sådan et alien tool, der var kommet ned fra himlen, og det havde ikke nogen manual. Så præmissen her er ligesom, at der er ikke rigtig nogen af os, der ved, hvordan man gør det her bedst, men, og det er derfor, det er rigtig værdifuldt at dele viden. Så det, der skal handle om i dag. Hvordan arbejder med agenter, og hvordan, skal man sige, materialiserer man det måske også ind i frameworks og laver tooling til at gøre det mere effektivt. Så det er det, skal handle om i dag. Velkommen til, Joshua.
Tusind tak. Jeg er så glad for at deltage her.
Ja. Jeg tænkte på, vil du ikke introducere dig selv, Joshua?
Ja, jeg har boet i Danmark i 15 år, som jeg har lært fra en skotsk kollega for mange år siden, som ham og mig og andre, som også kan ofte blive kaldt som love refugees. Så jeg blev tvinget til Danmark af en dansk pige, som vi mødte i universitet i USA. Altså det var mange år tilbage. Og jeg har en baggrund, som jeg er, som jeg vil kalde som den, hvad hedder improbable på dansk?
Usandsynlig.
Ja, usandsynlig. Ja. Usandsynlig software engineer. Jeg har en meget anderledes baggrund. Jeg har aldrig set kode, indtil jeg var 30. Og jeg har startet på universitet, da jeg var 28. Og før det har jeg været møblesnakker og klatret op i træ og skæret med motorsav og alt muligt. Jeg har haft 3 år ude i Rocky bjerg, hvor jeg stod på ski og klatrede op i bjerg så meget som muligt og arbejdede så lidt som muligt. Så var det tid til at vokse op, og jeg blev lidt træt og blev fattig. Så jeg har besluttet, at jeg skal læse på universitet, og jeg faktisk startet på mekanisk ingeniørlinjen. Og så det er en lang historie, men skiftet undervejs at læse matematik, og det var bare 4 år af bare writing proofs. Folk synes, det handler om tal, men det er rent logik. Ja, logik. Meget kedelig mavtyr. Men så undervejs har jeg også taget en hel masse computer science kurser. Og jeg synes, det var virkelig fedt, super spændende, og jeg også har evne til det. Ja, evne, er det rigtige ord? Ja. Så jeg fik en job, som studentmedarbejder i en community college, og som dengang jeg kunne Java, jeg kunne C, og jeg har haft data structures og algoritmer og de slags ting, meget basalt, og har kendt lidt HTML og CSS. Og jeg har arbejdet lidt med FTP for at sende din HTML og CSS-fil til en server, så man kan se den på nettet.
Ja, deployment.
FTP.
Men så avanceret var jeg. Og så fik jeg en job, og det var fantastisk, fordi jeg fik lov. 3 dage om ugen gik jeg til den community college, og de seriøst har parkeret mig ned i kælderen i serverrummet. Ingen vindue, bare højt til loftet, som servers buzzing. Men det var så fedt. Jeg kunne bare sidde der. Jeg har haft en ASP.NET bog, så tyk. Jeg læste hele igennem, hvor jeg skulle lære SQL, som lige fra bunden, og ASP.NET, og bygge nogle moduler til en intranet, de har haft på deres student og medarbejdere, som lærer på portal. Og det var fantastisk. Jeg var tæt til brugerne. Jeg skulle bare snakke med dem, finde ud af, hvad de vil gerne have. Jeg fik lov til at bare nørde mig virkelig meget. Og jeg har lavet en masse. Jeg tror, jeg har lavet 11 moduler i den 8 måneder, jeg var der. Og det var bare en fed oplevelse. Så kom jeg til Danmark og skulle tænke på, hvad skal man arbejde med, når man har en bachelor i matematik? Ja. og 2 kurser shy of computer science minor. Så jeg var heldig, at jeg fik en job af en Sitecore konsulenthus, som hed Cabana. Jeg tror, det stadig eksisterer. Men det var ude på Holmen. En lille Sitecore firma, men med store kunder, 3F og andre myndigheder, hjemmesider, store hjemmesider. Og det var en god start for mig, at det var lidt en fest der hos Cabana. Og så var jeg der i 3 år. Det var meget unaturligt for mig, fordi dengang jeg har arbejdet som meget lavpraktisk, direkte med SQL queries, og som bygget det hele fra bunden. Og så skulle pludselig arbejde med en abstraction af en CMS. Og hvad var det for noget? Så det virker mærkeligt. Jeg kunne ikke rigtig forstå det i starten. Men så kom jeg videre, som jeg tror, jeg har lavet meget jeg var der i 3 år, tror jeg. Så blev jeg kontaktet af en fra Vertic, som også de er lidt i marketing hjemmesider og også i medicinbranchen. Det har jeg lavet meget. Jeg har arbejdet benhårdt, da jeg var der, og kom meget længere i den Sitecore-verden, og blev ansvarlig for kodestandarden. Men dengang, det var stadig meget. Det var ikke så mange. Det var patterns. Det var design patterns, arkitektur patterns, men jeg kendte ikke til dem dengang. Som jeg var meget grov og meget som pragmatisk i min tilgang til det. Så fik jeg lov efter den stilling til at arbejde hos Penture. Og det var en fantastisk oplevelse. Jeg tror, da jeg begyndte at arbejde for Penture, har jeg først begyndt at som virkelig blive til en ingeniør. Fordi det var nogle virkelig dygtige. Shout out Thomas Stern, Alan Coates. Kender du Alan?
No.
Nej.
Bare shout out.
Anders Laub og Emil Klein, som virkelig dygtige udvikler, som har taget den backend webudvikling, og som gør det til mere en engineering praksis. Meget mere seriøst, og jeg har lært virkelig, virkelig meget, så jeg kom i gang med, som første gang startede at snakke om solid patterns, og common closure principle, og så videre. Og det var virkelig fedt. Og så brugte jeg videre til, jeg har haft en god forhold til SimCorp, som vi har haft som kunder, hvor jeg bliver inviteret til at komme og arbejde fuldstændig for dem, inde i deres marketingafdeling. Og det var lidt jeg var der i 3 år, så det var lidt en mærkelig stilling, fordi jeg er ikke rigtig meget til marketing. Men det var en god gruppe mennesker, som en godt oplevelse. Og det var fedt at have, som jeg kunne virkelig påvirke, ikke bare kode og løsning, men også strategi bag det, og prøve at give nogle råd om, hvordan vi kunne få det mest ud af deres platform, og med deres ønsker og ambitioner. Så så blev jeg kontaktet af Emil Klein fra Pencher, som var udviklingschef hos Clever. Og jeg synes, det var mega fedt. Vi har haft en lang forløb snak, hvor jeg blev headhunted af ham, og endelig gik derover. Og som det har jeg virkelig kommet i gang. Så jeg blev som cloud native hos Clever. Rent backend systemer. Masse volumen. Og som fik lov til at blive arkitekt på en af deres løsninger. Og jeg kom i kontakt med mange dygtige udviklere. Og det var en super fed oplevelse. Så er jeg rykket videre til, hvor jeg er nu, og som jeg vil ikke nævne, fordi vi skal snakke om Jumbo, og det er det handler om, og Agentic engineering og vibe coding, alt imellem. Jeg skal bare holde min arbejdsstilling nu, og den her afskilt fra hinanden.
Det er helt fint. Hvad hedder det? Joshua, du kendte, måden vi kom i kontakt med dig på, var Kasper Tidemann, som også har været med i podcasten her. Hvor kender du... Ja, jeg tænker, du kender ham et sted fra, eller?
Ja, jeg kender ham fra den tid i Pencher, faktisk. Jeg var udstedet hos Danske Spil, og han var der som privatkonsulent. Jeg kunne huske ham, fordi Kasper er en person, som når man kan mærke ham, når han er i en rum.
Ja.
Han behøver ikke sige noget, men he has a presence.
Ja.
Og så når han endelig siger noget, som det er meget sjældent. Jeg har aldrig hørt ham sige noget som var dumt. Han er en virkelig klog mand. Og han er også griner. Han er sjov.
Ja. Det skal jo siges også, at jamen, det var jo Kasper Tidemann, som jo netop skrev på LinkedIn og taggede, jeg tror det var dig og mig, Kasper, og sagde, ham her, Joshua, ham skal I have med. Og som du siger, når han siger noget, så lytter man.
Ja, det er rigtigt.
Så derfor så tænkte jeg, selvfølgelig skal vi det.
Ja.
Du er meget høj, Jonas. Jeg ved ikke om du har skruet op for... Ikke fordi,
det kan godt være, jeg lige er kommet til at skrue lidt op. Ja. Sorry.
Men det var meget tilfældigt, fordi vi har lige mødt for nogle dage siden. Så dengang, som vi var som casual friends, og så efter den forløb i Danske Spil, havde lidt mistet kontakt med ham. Og for nylig, han har bare kommentaret eller liket noget, jeg slået op på LinkedIn. Og så jeg tænkte på, at jeg vil gerne snakke med ham faktisk i forhold til Jumbo og som den forløb, jeg har med den der. Og vi mødte, og vi havde en fantastisk samtale, som jeg tror, det var meget mindre AI, og snakke meget om the craft of writing code.
2 sekunder. Nu er der lige kommet lidt ekko på Joshua. Jeg ved ikke, det var fordi Jonas sidder med teknikken, så jeg ved ikke om... eller er det bare mig?
Det tror jeg bare er din ende.
Det er bare mig. Okay.
Nej, jeg kan høre det.
Kan du også høre det?
Ja.
Okay, der er kommet noget ekko.
Er det
bare
mig, der er ekko?
Bare fortsæt, Joshua, så...
Fint.
Så prøv.
Er det okay?
Det er lige kommet, ikke?
Ja.
Okay, super. Bare fortsæt, så finder Jonas... ingeniører han noget frem.
Men det var en virkelig god snak. Vi snakkede meget som the craft of coding. Altså, jeg synes, det er også interessant, som når vi kommer videre på den her agentic engineering verden og fremtiden, som vi står i nu. Som, hvad vil der ske med det? Og jeg er ikke sikker på, at det vil døde. Når jeg kom til at reflektere lidt over det, okay, nu begynder jeg at miste min tankegang, fordi jeg tror, jeg er vant til at tænke på det på engelsk. Men
skal vi, should we switch to English now, maybe?
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
And then maybe just, would like to just hear, how did you get into, agentic engineering and, just maybe as a pre-story to what got you to, start building Jumbo.
Yeah, sure. So I feel like I was late. I think people that were early were already, experimenting back in the mid to late 24. Around the start of 20. Back then, I was starting to experiment. I was using Copilot to write unit tests for me, just to like scaffold them out. Because
like
I didn't
autocomplete style, or like using the agent, or
so I was using it autocomplete style.
Yeah.
And what I was doing was just stubbing out a unit test for a class and then saying like, complete this for me.
Yeah.
And it was great because I thought it was, I hate writing unit tests.
Yeah.
And one of the things I absolutely despise is this metric that code coverage somehow equals a quality code base. Also because it's just so easy to cheat, right? All you have to do is get the compiler to execute, the test to execute from start to end of the method. And that's not a measure of quality. That's not a measure that the business rules have been upheld. And I think that's the key thing. So I was perfectly happy to hand that responsibility over and spend less time doing that and just, verify the results and refine them, which I needed to do.
Yeah.
But then I changed jobs and I've been working as a pure architect role. So I haven't been fortunate enough to work in my daily practice coding,
like hands-on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do proof of concept stuff, but I'm not committing pull requests.
No.
So I had this. So it wasn't really natural for me to experiment with it. But last summer I had a side project I started up. I noticed, since the beginning of last year, I started using ChatGPT, and I had this, wow, the hell? What is this? And for a while it seemed like magic. I don't think it's magic anymore. It's very clear to me now. It's technology.
Yeah.
But I was pretty blown away, and I was,
it's funny because technology is always magic when you don't understand it, right? But when you then understand it, it's not magic anymore.
No.
Yeah.
It's just it's ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand.
That's another different story.
Yeah. So my usage of AI, I realized like I'm not searching a lot anymore. I'm not Googling anything. And I started to extrapolate this and think about, the global impact of like this. This has to be a common phenomenon. And started to do some research and found out it was. And AI is killing the entire business model of the internet, or it's threatening it to change. And we can have a long conversation about that because that's probably good in a lot of ways, and probably not so great for some that are, I think really dependent on it, and have made a very concerted effort to build a following and have dedicated a lot of time and energy and sweat to something they love. So I started thinking about building an alternative to publishing to the web, where I thought if you still need web presence, then there's probably two types of content. There's content that's highly curated. Maybe now we're back into that sort of the craft of code, which is a type of content I think probably deserves to survive this transition we're going through. And then there's the rest of it, which is a huge amount of web content. And that probably doesn't need all of this production value, developers, designers, UXers. It's an expensive endeavor to develop a website, at least a professional one and an enterprise level website. most of that content probably doesn't need the web. If what you need is exposure, then I think what you want to do is get into the chat summaries in ChatGPT or the Google AI summaries and the others. So I had started building this platform where it was like publish direct to AI, and that was where I started working with Cloud Code, with Copilot.
So you're talking about a totally different project than the Jumbo, but that's where you
like publishing to AI.
Yeah,
we can have another episode on that, because I think that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah.
It is an interesting topic. By the way, I am currently at the JP Politikens Hus, where this is a major topic, of course, and there's a lot of like traditional content and so on. So I can totally see what you're saying that oh my God,
I'm just curious, what would that look like, right? Because would you then inject content just into the weights of the neural network, or would it be like a separate web for, or like,
Isn't it like a retrieving engine for generative engines, like or whatever?
One of the reasons I was happy to walk away from it is I had
now you're telling about the downfall.
I had a partner on that one, and the issue with that, the idea was to build a content publishing platform, which was MCP based, and then the idea was that we would offer clients, we would offer to scrape their content from their web with their permission, make it available. We would embed it, and do semantic search with their content and expose it through an MCP layer. The problem was, it's a two-sided market, and you have to then attract chatbots to then use it, right? And we had some strategies for how we were going to address that, but it was a big gamble. And along the way, I was wading into the waters of agentic engineering, and it was so frustrating because it was like putting a cape on and flying like Superman and thinking like, woo, I'm getting so much done. This is so much fun. And then you start, then you start looking under the covers and see what has been written, and you're like, this is not sustainable. I'm trying to build a product here. I'm trying to build an enterprise solution. This will not survive changes. It was so brittle. Or, and I think what really what really triggered me was like, I'd have a session, I'd prompt something, and then I would get outputs that were reminiscent of things that we had done in the past and had made decisions. And I didn't quite get at that point the agent amnesia. I didn't get that idea that you're dealing with, it's like you're meeting the coding agent or the model every time for the first time you crack open a session.
Onboarded every time.
Every time. And so I started developing this strategy where I was like, okay, I'm going to have the agent just output as a session summary every time, and I'll keep a diary. So I had this directory in my repository where just had a daily diary of like, what tasks did we accomplish? What decisions were made? And I built this. There was kind of an ontology that was shaping. I hate using that word because it's just it's just, and you're hearing it a lot right now, and it's really just a glorified way of saying like a domain model, right? Like, how do you model your domain?
Yeah, you could say semantic.
Yeah. But there were some domain primitives that were popping up in that, and but I started to realize, like, I was watching what the agent was doing, and I think at this time I was working with Cloud Code, and I guess it would have been like mostly sonnet or opus 3.5 around there, something like that. I don't know. We're talking about last summer.
Yeah, it seems, yeah. 3.5, I think was that one. Yeah, back
something
then.
like that.
Yeah. A lot worse than what we have now, at least.
Yeah, but also, I mean,
not bad.
Yeah, I found ways to get a lot of value out of them as well. So then it occurred to me, all right, like some sort of persistent memory is what's missing here, and some sort of record of the events that have happened, and I think the key thing was like decisions, like, decided to do an architectural change or change out a dependency, something like that, because I'm working with technology I haven't tried out before, and I realized like I started going down the wrong path. And then I got tired of just constantly also like maintaining these summaries and making sure I was trimming out all of the old files, because I noticed the agent was trying to read a lot of them. And that about that time I started tracking the context window and seeing that it was getting bloated with a lot of stuff. And even though I was having these summaries, it was keeping it within these guardrails that I wanted, but it was still going a little bit outside and seemed to be getting distracted by older artifacts that were still laying around in that diary that I had.
So you started to discover that you have to kind of like manage the context window to not, bloat it totally, or
and it's funny because this was around August last year. So I started formalize. I thought, all right, I'm onto something here with this session dump every time, but it's still kind of a lot of work because I got to maintain this, and then I go in and I check that, and I might add some stuff and remove some things, and it was still missing some. It was pretty basic. Like I knew it could be richer. I knew that I could have some more persistent memories and also some episodic memories, and that they all needed to be mixed. So I started formalizing that into a CLI tool, and that became Jumbo. And originally it was just about supplying my agent with memory. Hence the name was, I thought Jumbo, like an elephant never forgets.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I started building it because I got tired of maintaining all these markdown files, and then I started dog fooding it once it got to a certain point. And I was bitten at that point. I love working on this tool. I love trying to wrangle the agent to get. It's non-deterministic, right? It's probabilistic, but I want deterministic outcomes. I want to build a solution that upholds, enterprise patterns and architecture, because what am I trying to say? We're in an age right now. You hear a lot of people. There's this debate out there where some are saying, "Oh, you don't just vibe a new solution. Like just AI code is throwaway code. Like if you need to add a new feature, whatever, like just have it roll an entire new solution." And that's just, I think that is such a farce. I actually think it's really irresponsible when I hear developers out there making this claim, because they're having a huge impact on the world right now, and what business what the business executives want to believe. They want to believe a narrative that they can dismiss their entire IT department, exactly. and get rid of all those salaries, and think that they can just have their product owners vibe their way to all the solutions that they need. And it's
that's not the way you should see it, right? That's very
It's a false narrative that's being spun, and it's having real effects on the world right now. Like, the market, tech. There was a huge tech sell-off in January and February, and there are. You're hearing news about a lot of layoffs, large-scale layoffs, and we don't know if those are actually AI related or if that's just a good.
They say it is, right? Because they say, oh, this AI and but
historically, all kinds of shocks to the economy or whatever have been used as the excuse for layoffs. So I don't know. I think can I just add to your perception of this technology and the impact that it has? Also, the let's not be irresponsible engineers just because now we can output code like never before. I totally agree, and I think that the goal as an engineer, I have this idea that everybody becomes agent ops. People like, I know we don't need another ops, but in some way we are becoming that. And I think like embracing it in the way that you do, Joshua, with basically saying, okay, let's figure out how we build around this technology to actually have it behave the way we want it to. I think that's kind of like the way forward.
Yeah, and also every time I talk to people about how to get the best from agentic engineering, it always points back to have a nice code base with a good architecture and have good process, continuous delivery, all of that stuff, right? So in my world, the good old best practices, the good old clean code stuff, all of that, it's still the same today, actually. And that's actually even more important because now software developers are more like becoming leaders of agents, right? So they have to be more concerned about their working environment and do they have access to the tooling they need, and how is this code base for them to work in? Like, how effectively can they work? How good is the documentation, so they don't have to spend 1 million tokens every time they have to learn something about how this code base works? And in many ways, that could be, you can oftentimes ask yourself, what would be nice for a human to work efficiently in this scenario? And the answer to that question would be the same answer for like what would make an agent efficient. Not always the same, because that there's these attributes for agents that they have this context window that just wipes every time, right? So there's differences, but usually it's very everything that's good for humans is also good for agents.
I would say newcomers to the code base, right?
Yeah.
Like your fellow engineer, you have to onboard into the code base, and he's like from scratch trying to learn what's the architecture, what's the layout of these folders, and so on. I think that's like the key. If you treat the agent as this person,
very
maybe
intelligent
maybe
developer.
not with Jumbo, Joshua, but we have to get more into what Jumbo solves. But I think that's kind of like this amnesia that we're just starting from scratch every time as an agent, right?
Yeah, and that's sort of one of the first principles that Jumbo is based on, is that what I built it because I want these outcomes, and I think you're spot on that. Adhering to solid principles, adhering to common closure principle, adhering to known architecture patterns, clean architecture, how you organize your code base, making sure you decompose and giant classes. This all it benefits the agent just as much as it does us, if not more. It helps avoid merge conflicts, especially as we're getting into the trend right now is to try to do a lot of orchestrated multi-agents running concurrently in work trees, and those merges just get so much easier when somebody's working in one bounded context of the solution, somebody's working in another, and your job as an engineer is to make sure you're just making sure you're not pointing them in areas where their work is going to be overlapping. So totally agreed. And that was one of the things I tried to build into Jumbo. So it started out as memory, but I quickly realized that memory isn't enough. Memory is encoding information, storing it, and then making it available for retrieval when needed. And the when needed part is really crucial, because there's a lot of, if you look through Reddit, there's a ton of memory solutions that are popping up, and a lot of them are advertising trendy technologies like, we've got a semantic search with a vector database, or there's a knowledge graph.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
And we all love that, right? Like we're like,
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I can't help it. Yeah.
But I think, for me, when I say I'm an improbable software engineer, I think that really benefits me, because my background, I'm not the kid that was in my high school room, in my bedroom in high school, and coding up all night, just completely enamored with computers and everything I could do and the ways I could bend them to my will. It's always been a pragmatic approach to me. I've realized later on, I love solving problems, and I'm a nerd, and I love digging into things, and I like doing things well. I have a hard time with the 80-20 rule. I always want to go to 100. But I lost my train of thought there. But
so you were talking about, there's a lot of fancy technologies for memory and stuff like
right,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my approach has been very pragmatic. I think the key thing was not just how do I provide memory, but how do I provide it when it's needed? Yeah. And that has produced, me experimenting and spending a lot of time thinking about what is the orchestrated workflow? What are the central touch points that I'm handing, what I'm trying to say. What are the central entities in which I'm exchanging as artifacts with the agent? You have I wanted to say that memory is also, there are two types of long-term memory, and that's what we're missing, right? Well, it's not true. You have long-term memory. The agent, or the model behind it, the harness, was trained on the entire internet, and anything that could be stolen off of open servers. And so that's its long-term memory. When you're in the agentic loop and it's going back and retrieving, it's going through its long-term memory and finding out what's relevant here for me to the task at hand. But what it's not trained on is your code base.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to add that. And there are two types of long-term memory that you can apply. That's declarative memory and non-declarative memory. Declarative memory is like facts and events. Non-declarative memory is like skills and habits. So skills is interesting. When you think about that division, skills have been gaining a lot of popularity in the last couple of months, and there's a lot being written about them, also by some high-profile people. And there are some people that are like falling in this camp. They're like, oh, I'm going all in on skills. I don't need any frameworks. I'm just going to populate my repo with a bunch of skills specific to the tasks that I do, that I want it to do deterministically and regularly. And that's a way of sort of supplying more of an algorithmic approach to what the agent's outputs are going to be. And that's good. And Jumbo also ships with some skills for some common tasks that are related to using it. But that doesn't give you facts and events.
So there need to be a record also of what happened and what decisions were made, and
there needs to be a record. And I've been reading this book recently called Permanent Present Tense by Susan Corkin. And disclaimer: I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not claiming to be one.
Come on, man. Be a little neuroscientist, man.
This is going to be a little watered down version of some things that I've learned. But I've become interested in the topic of memory since doing this, because I have my intuitive approach I have the ideas we have from computer science about how to work with persistent data and how to make that retrieval efficient. And there's patterns that have been applied from that discipline. But there's this whole other world behind neuroscience and from the discipline of neuroscience that I think is very applicable. And as I've been reading this book, Permanent Present Tense by Susan Corkin, it's about a guy named Henry Molaison who had andrograde amnesia. So as a teenager, he had epilepsy. He got operated on. They removed a lot of his frontal lobe and his hippocampus, which meant he couldn't develop long-term memories anymore. But he still had working memory, and working memory is like what your brain is using when you're trying to accomplish a task. It's using short-term memory, which is lasts about 30 seconds, surprisingly. And it's like keeping current facts, new input that you've gotten, keeping that in a loop in short-term memory. And then when the capacity of the working memory the task at hand exceeds the capacity of the working memory then has to go and retrieve long-term memories to build in and reinforce. And I'm reading all this, I'm learning it, I'm like, this is exactly what I've been
Seems
building.
like something that could be engineered, right?
This seems very familiar. All these patterns are identical to what we're experiencing. And then there are two high-level processes that sit on top of memory, and that's control processes, which is like an executive function that helps you filter out noise and just get information that is pertinent to what you're doing. And then you have top-down processing, which is like strategy, like how do you orchestrate all these processes and bring this information together to achieve goals, which is the central idea in Jumbo.
Okay.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Okay, Jumbo is like neuroscience in computer science. Crazy.
TypeScript neuroscience.
It wasn't by design, but retroactively, I can look, looking back as I'm learning more about this other discipline, I'm seeing how perfectly it maps on top of what I've been doing. Similarly, I know I've heard you guys in one of the episodes that I saw of yours reference Dexter Horthy.
Yeah.
What's been really validating for me is back around October, I'd already been a month and a half into this, and I heard his talk on context engineering.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I'm doing. And everybody seems to be listening to this guy. And we seem to be step in step in our thoughts. So I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I digress. So goals are the central domain entity in Jumbo. I've defined a domain that can be split up into 3 layers. You have a sort of project knowledge domain, your solution, and then there's relations. I do build a kind of knowledge graph, a very primitive one using SQLite. But anyway.
Fancy. What about the vector database? Oh.
Nope, not going there.
Not going there. So
not yet.
Okay, so go on.
So basically what you do, you initialize your project, you give it a project name, and you give it a project purpose. You can define other things in the project knowledge, like who's the project audience, what are the value propositions that this solution is supposed to provide for them, and the idea is that collectively the project knowledge layer and those entities give an agent kind of a North Star to point towards. They're very generic, and can also be used to make sure that you can prompt the agent and instruct it to sort of keep you in check if you start to go off the rails and suggest building features that aren't really providing value to your end users. Because I think that's an important part as we move into this, and as we move into being orchestrators of agents. We have to start thinking on that level.
When you start delegating and lose control of details, you kind of like have to enable the agents to make effective decisions that align with what you would have done, but autonomously.
But also think at a higher level of abstraction about the end user and the value that you're providing this. I think that's going to be a hard transition for a lot of us, because we love getting down into the details and figuring out, how do I solve this problem, and how do I do this in the mechanics. We really get into the mechanics of things, and that's been a hard thing. That's been a hard thing for me to sort of let go of. And one of the reasons I've been building Jumbo as well is like, I want to give myself a platform that gives me the assurances of the outcomes that allow me to, I want to switch over to Danish now, give slip.
Yes. 15 years in Denmark.
Yeah. Sometimes the Danish expressions pop in and they just seem more natural.
Great.
Because as we're moving through this transition, I know there's a whole bunch of us that are interested, and we're racing forward. A lot of us losing a lot of sleep because we're AI pilled.
Tell me about it.
But then there's a whole other camp that people are just really slow to move. They've experimented at some earlier point. Didn't experiment over Christmas break like the rest of the world, and then finally realized I can do something with this.
Burned all the tokens at Christmas evening. Like me.
Maxed out the 20x subscription, max subscription, no, whatever. Yeah.
And I want to provide a platform that's going to help onboard conservative developers. And give them something they can work with. It helps make it a little bit easier to get reliable outcomes. I think so far it's working, because I use it and I can't remember life without it. So you have this project knowledge.
Yeah, just the point that it's hard for developers and engineers to let go of coding, and it's hard for them to kind of like delegate to an agent. So I've been training about 150 software engineers in agentic engineering for the past year, and this is so true, and it is very, very. It kind of like reminds me of I've also spent the past 2 years being kind of like a leader position in where I worked, and it's kind of like the same. That feeling of taking a step up and leading someone else to do the work. Like I can imagine that the analogy of not doing the work yourself, but
and I think we have to accept that things aren't going to be implemented exactly the way we do it. So we have to have some sort of mechanism that provides us a way to define the standards that are important to us. And they have to be flexible. They can't just be some sort of global standards. Jumbo doesn't just say, implement solid. I don't know if you want to do solid. I don't know if you want to implement clean architecture. I do clean screaming architecture. We can talk about that. Jumbo provides, beyond the project knowledge layer, in the core domain entities, then you have your solution layer, and that you have an architecture entity. Then there are some other primitives like invariants, guidelines, decisions, dependencies, components, and then you have your like project management layer, and you have goals and sessions, and finally that knowledge graph, which is relations.
So just concretely speaking, everything is going to be text to an LLM in the end, right? So it's all about context engineering and putting this kind of into the context at the right time for the right task.
Yeah.
And are those like pre-configured in some way in Jumbo? Like, do you go like an agent.md and describe these kind of like things, or what is being built dynamically? Like your memory, your graph is I suppose something that's going to be built dynamically in Jumbo. Is that right? Or
Yeah, it gets built dynamically. So with all of those things as a foundation, then I have a jumbo.md file that and when you initialize Jumbo in a repository, you sort of set the scene, give it these North Star parameters or descriptions. What I do is I write into your Claude settings, Gemini settings, Copilot settings. I inject a snippet into your Agents MD or Claude MD or Gemini MD if you have them.
Or just says, right into the instructions file there. Okay. Yeah.
Just a one-liner. It says, go look at jumbo.md.
Nice.
And there I have instructions about like what Jumbo is, that you should, the agent needs to respect it as a proxy for the developer. And then instructs it that on session start to always run Jumbo session start. It's a CLI tool.
It's the black magic part of this whole business.
Yeah.
CLI tool.
Yeah. But I do some other things, for it gets more, it can do more advanced things with harnesses that support hooks. So, with Gemini and Claude, I have hooks configured for doing that, hooking into the session start and session end. I also have pre-compaction hooks and session start after compaction. Those are designed to help extend the context window, actually. I'll just do some hand waving around that for now, because I think I need to describe some other core ways in which it works before I can make that make sense. So the annoying thing about that Jumbo session start and the way I have it set up and configured, for a long time, I would just open up Cloud Code and I would prompt hi, and then Cloud Code would just prompt me. It would then run Jumbo session start, and it would get this project orientation. And it was some of those high level things, those North Star ideas, like what is this project about? And then an outline of what goals that I had planned or in progress. And a prompt that tells it to instruct me, giving me an overview and say, hey, I can see you've been working on these things. These are the goals you have planned. Cool. Which one would you like me to start? Or do you want to do something completely different? And what was brilliant for a long time, all I had to do was just type hi. What's annoying since about a month and a half ago, and it wasn't with the release, it wasn't like switching to Opus 4.6 or something like that. It wasn't a model. It was just like the harnesses, somehow the system prompt got a little more conservative about not running the hooks automatically. Or I think they're being run. I've looked into logs. They're being run. They're just not prompting me back. So now what I usually start with is hi, or I've stopped that, because then I get a response that says, hi, what can I help you with? Or how can I help you today? And then I prompt again by following instructions.
God damn
it. And then that's all I have to say. And then it runs Jumbo session start, and then we're off and running. So my workflow today is Jumbo has, as I said, it's all centralized around goals. The goals have a 4-phase life cycle. Well, I guess 5 if you consider definition, because I either am defining goals directly with a prompt, and goals are basically criteria, an objective, criteria, what's in scope, what's out of scope, and you can link goals, you can chain goals, You can define prerequisite goals that can be enforced, so an agent can't start a goal unless something else has been a prerequisite's been completed first. So I either am creating goals directly, or sometimes if it's like I have a rough idea and I'm not exactly sure I want to implement it, and I want to spar a little bit with the agent, I'll do like a sparring session with it and then get it to register the goal for me. Once the goals are registered, that session prompt, session start prompt, feeds everything that is defined, which means it's ready for the first phase, which is refinement. They're refined and ready to implement the second phase.
Makes sense.
If they're submitted after being implemented, then they're ready for review. And then finally, there's a codifying phase, which has the purpose of updating documentation,
learning decision. I'm looking at the website right now. So yeah.
Additionally, registering any decisions, new components that haven't been registered along the way. So then what I usually do is I'm running multiple terminals in parallel. I have a refinement running. And the benefit of this is that I'm not using the same model for each, because I usually want a heavy SOP model to do the refinement. What happens in that phase is when the agent runs Jumbo goal refine, it gets a context packet back that describes all that there is in the raw goal. You get the criteria, the objective, all those other things that I mentioned, and then instructions to query the Jumbo database for invariants that are applicable, for guidelines that are applicable, for components that are applicable. Make sure all the scope that are in and out are defined properly. And it spends a session, a context window doing that. The brilliant part about that, what it does is it builds relations. So the knowledge graph gets built up. So once the goal is refined and gets submitted, then when I have another window open and I have an agent implement the goal, it gets a new context packet back that has all the core attributes of the goal, plus all of the relations that have been added. So it's a very curated context packet that it gets back. So again, now we're back to what I was saying. It was really nice reading about memory, how it works, and the third component of working memory is not just retrieving memories, but retrieving memories when needed. And when we're exposing an agent to an MCP server that has some sort of vector database sitting behind it in semantic search, then we're trusting that the agent is going to do two things well for us. One, it's not going to pull in a bunch of information or search for a bunch of information that isn't really relevant to what we want,
the retrieved information is not a bunch of stuff. There's both the bottleneck of what it's searching for and what is also retrieved, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so with it's a very curated, dense context packet that the agent gets and works on, and because it's flexible enough around invariants and guidelines, I have a lot of things in my solution defined of I've got each of the solid principles listed. I have a common closure principle listed. I have rules about naming, because I'm, like we were saying, the things that are just as important to us as human developers are equally as important to agent developers. I had a colleague when I worked at Pencha that said, "Oh, Josh, reading your code is like reading prose," because it's like, why would you name? One of my pet peeves is like, why would you semantically change the name of a variable when you have like a you have a method that returns, that has a method signature, says, get, whatever type of entity. And then you rename that entity to something that's synonymous with it on your variable. I'm like, it just does, that's not where we want to apply creativity as developers. Like, be pragmatic and keep the naming consistent, because it gives meaning to me when I'm reading the code and trying to understand what's going on, just like it gives meaning to the agent when it's reading the code and trying to figure out what's going on.
This is not even a discussion, because LLMs are basically trained to understand language and semantics and coding language, and that goes for naming too. And it will actually be confused if you name something that semantically points in a different direction than it is supposed to. Although I know that there's a lot of, let's just put it, the crappy code on GitHub that has all of these weird, maybe constructs of names.
It's like college student code.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that authors of these models are, they tune them in different kind of ways. They would never go for a tuning that is going in the direction of ambiguity in namings and confusion. So you're going to have a world where it's the models are tuned in a way that is reflecting the human understanding of the code, and not some other.
Are you seeing evidence of that? Because I'm seeing evidence of a lot of the crap that was trained from Stack Overflow is still bleeding out into the outputs.
It is. But I'm just saying that there's I don't think that there's like a roadmap for any model provider out there to have that persist over time. They're trying to get rid of that.
I think what they're doing now is to produce a lot of training data on like high quality code output, and they're training on that. And I think we will. That's also why we see the output increase in quality.
I think we're just going to see that the quality of the output of the models is going to be better and better, and that also means that when the output is better, the understanding, the way that the model understands your code base has to sort of like align with this quality, because it's a language in both the output and the input.
But
it's just how the models work when they're trained. But of course, you can translate bad language to good language in some way, and you also have to be able to do that. So it's a two-sided thing. But I just think that it's so no-brainer that, of course, you have to have your code, good naming conventions, because it's going to help the models.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say we've been talking for an hour, and we don't want to keep you all night, Joshua. I just have a ton of questions, because I think it's a very very interesting approach you have here. So I think we could at least podcast 1 or 2 hours more. But
do we need to cut it off? I can hang out for a little while longer if you want to keep going.
Let's do that.
Let's keep it a little bit longer.
Yeah, let's keep it a little bit
I have
longer.
one thing. I know you have a ton of questions also, but I have just one thing I want to point out. I feel like we had a session some time ago where we went through OpenAI's sort of like paper on how they ran autonomous agents with their a couple of engineers around it, and
harness engineering
and all that, and they described this kind of like folder indexed documentation of how what's in the code bases. I'm just curious, because it seems to me that what you're talking about just with the graph, like the retrieval of that, is that kind of like is it a true graph, or is it a tree that you're actually a tree structure that you're making, or is it a little bit like a folder that basically mimics the architecture of the code base, but just has like markdown documentations for the different modules and so on?
So under the hood, it is a knowledge graph. It's just it's built from scratch, right, using SQLite. So the architecture under the hood is event sourcing based. So every time, so the events are stored in, I initialize a .jumbo folder in your repository, and events are stored under an events directory there, and and then the events are then projected onto a SQLite database with the materialized views are. So the relations are nodes and edges, but it's a very rudimentary implementation. I have ambitions, so this solution works really well for a single developer.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're gonna get, because of the event sourcing, you're gonna get conflicts if you try to work with it in a team. You can't do shared memories right now. And anybody that might use it, please do. I hope you find a lot of value out of it. Do not commit it to your repo if you're using it in a shared repo.
I think a lot of people are discovering exactly that with these solutions that they are building, and people are building, that they are working well for individuals, but team doing this as a team is a totally different thing.
It is. I'm designing and beginning to work on a cloud-based solution as well that will work for teams. Calling it Jumbo Herd.
That's interesting.
But so stay tuned.
Yeah.
So it is a real knowledge graph. It's just not a very advanced one in what I'm doing with it and the ways which I'm traversing the graph. Part of that is also just a question of, I work full time. I have a 2-year-old son, and not in that order. Those two things are first priorities in my life. And in every spare minute, I've been, trying to get this thing off the ground, and I'm burning for it. I love it. I would love to do it full time. I'm just completely captured.
Well, it sounds really like I think I have to try it. I really have to try it one day.
Can
So
I just
Yeah.
Can I just comment on, because you talked about this North Star, right? And this to me, in developing these systems, it has been very tough to kind of like figure out what do you need to decide and what do you need to let the agent decide, and what kind of like guidelines and things do you have to kind of like enforce and what not to do, right? And right now I'm working on a project, or I don't know if you're familiar with the Ralph loops. I think
I've seen your Ralphify project and I want to
Nice.
try it out. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So and if you followed Dexter Horthy, I think you might have be familiar with Ralph loops. So it's basically it's basically just putting the AI in a loop, or the agent in a loop, because the problem is that if you tell an agent to do something, at some point it will eventually stop doing it, right? And then the solution is just to put it in a while loop and trap it there for forever, right? So when I first heard that thing, I thought it was a little bit silly, right? Because overly simple solution to that problem, right?
Those are the best solutions.
Yeah, exactly. But then I actually started playing with it here a month ago or so, and started to I did the bash script and just tried it out, just handheld and just had it running a night, and just thought, okay, those are not weirdly interesting output it came out with. And then I started doing it sometimes and kind of like get the hang of what tasks are this good for, and what tools and do I kind of like need to control this and kind of like steer it in a useful pattern. Because if you feel uncomfortable delegating these more control tasks to an agent that most of us are doing now with Jumbo style work and plan mode and research plan implement by Dexter Horthy, you will feel very, very uncomfortable just letting the agent go in a loop until you stop it, right, and have it output useful things. But I just feel like you have to think in a very interesting way when doing that. And that sets a lot of it demands that you think a lot about what do you, because I find like it's actually dangerous to be too specific for the agent here, because then it will overfit to that. You kind of like have to put up some structure, but not too much, And then, it's always nice if I find, if you have, a hard metric. For example, Andre Karpathy had done this auto research thing where he's optimizing to minimize some loss in machine learning system. Also, that's good because then it has some hard metric it can optimize for. Another thing that is good is, if you have some reference thing that it can constantly reference to, for example, writing documentation for a code base, or increasing test coverage, it can constantly reference that. But if you don't have that, and if it's more like fluffy, you need to kind of like be very clear on the vision and the strategy to get there, and kind of like be very make sure that it can make efficient decisions, that when it faces problems and uncertainty that you were not able to predict when you started off, right? And that's also what it makes it interesting, because it can iteratively and incrementally work, go places the way it did not. And what did I want to say with this? I'm just saying that
it was a little bit about freeing your mind.
I probably also had to kind of like just get it out, right? But very interesting with that North Star thing. And I found another thing that is very useful is to kind of like put some guardrails and also deterministic checks at each iteration that enforces some kind of file system that the agent have to kind of like work within. For example, sessions and memory and a scratch pad and maybe decisions and
I actually have been I've been seeing you promoting that a lot, and I'm curious because one of the things I'm curious to see what happens if it's possible to put Jumbo and Ralphify together. Actually,
I was thinking that.
Because
let's do that.
I love the approach, and when I heard Peter Steinberger talk about for the first time about OpenClaw, so many changes in the name, right? I still remember the original name. At first I loved listening to him just because I really loved hearing somebody that was just so passionate and bitten by what they were doing, driven by the passion of the creative process. It was fantastic, and he seems like such a genuine guy, and just had such, just driven by his own curiosity. And one of the real unlocks for me listening to him was how he he wanted to get to this point where he was setting the agent free, like, recognizing, like, I'm not tapping the full potential of this technology if I insist on putting shackles on it, or putting a bridle on it all the time and holding it back and making sure that I can keep up with it. Those weren't his words. That's my interpretation. And that has really bitten me. That thought has bitten me because I want to figure out how to bridge that gap with Jumbo. Because as I said, one of my intentions with this is to try to provide a tool that is going to allow conservative engineers who work in enterprise solutions that can't risk if their product goes awry. They have thousands of users, or they deal with a solution that has very strict compliance rules that they have to adhere to, or there are really major financial implications for their users or the business if something goes wrong, or there's privacy issues if something information is leaked. There's I'm not going to call anybody out here, but there's a pretty well-known startup here in Denmark that has a lot of traction on LinkedIn, and they recently posted that their solution had leaked other customer data to another customer, and that's really severe when we're living in the GDPR era, operating in Europe. That could shut down your business.
Classic back-end issue.
Yeah. So I'm totally bitten by, and have been working hard and trying to figure out how do I get Jumbo to a point where it's providing the assurances and it's allowing me as a developer or another developer to be involved at the right touch points where it's important. And I don't believe in a future where you shouldn't read the code. I think we still need to. Partially also, you have to maintain the mental model. I think you used that word,
mental
Jonas.
alignment with the code base.
You have to know what's going there because you're not going to hot fix a bug with a Ralph loop. Probably.
No, exactly.
Depending on what it is, there are going to be these emergency situations where you have to know how to get in there and tinker. But to bring it back, there is still more to do. There is still more freedom to give, and I've been working hard to figure out how to strike that balance. I'm working on the next generation where it is a little more autonomous and using. I've been trying to figure out how to get the agent to use Jumbo heavily, and so while it's working, if it, for example, bumps up into something that's out of scope, that should be a prerequisite, block the current goal, register another goal that should be a prerequisite, then have that available in the backlog, so the refinement agent that's running in a loop can then pull off that new goal that's just popped up, refine it, and then the orchestrator that's sitting and choosing goals that need to be implemented can just take that next goal, see that it's the next prerequisite, and there's a goal blocked. And so I can sort of like free things up in that way and get the agent to use Jumbo recursively. I'm trying to figure. I've been working with gamify tactics.
Would be interesting to if you have CLI tools. It's a big trend that agents can use CLI tools. Also, many people think it's way more useful than compared to MCP, for example.
I'm aware, and again, another one of these things where sorry to just letting my ego shine here, but just another one of those things where it's like I'm following what's going on. I listen to the AI daily updates, and I'm late in space, and I'm aware of what's going on. And when I see that CLI tools are now the new black, I'm like,
they've been that for ages, right?
but
let's go back to Unix pipes.
My point was just that it would be interesting if because it's also a trend right now to, if you have a CLI that you want an agent to be good at using, make a skill for it that can kind of like onboard the agent to help it reason, how can I use this CLI. It would be very interesting to kind of like do a high level goal, spec, vision, strategy, whatever, some high level stuff, have a Ralph loop implemented vanilla style, and then Jumbo style, like with the Jumbo skills CLI thing. I think I will make that experiment myself.
I was working this weekend on trying to develop a very rudimentary benchmark for measuring the efficacy of Jumbo, so that I could measure, feeding it some multi-session tasks, multi-session prompts, simulating, because the benefit is it doesn't come in a single session. Benefit is built up over time. Anyway, just to have some metrics, because all of my experience is anecdotal. I've been using it, and I seriously, I love it. I don't. Once in a while, I will prompt without Jumbo. I'll circumvent Jumbo on my solution, and for very small and simple things, it's gotten a lot better with the recent models. But when I try to be a little more ambitious like that and just freestyle, I usually end up regretting it. So I really have gotten hooked on this workflow of I'm focused on goals. I'm just writing goals, and I don't every time have to remember what are all the things that we've done or decisions that were made that need to be applied to this. They just come automatically. I'm just focusing on the objective and the criteria.
I have a project that I'm going to build here this week or so. I think I want to make an experiment this time. If you haven't made a skill for Jumbo yet, I will make one.
What skill?
An agent skill.
Well, it ships with a few skills.
Yeah, but does it also ship with a skill that instructs an agent how to use Jumbo?
Those are embedded in the skills for refine a Jumbo goal.
So that's kind of like part of the
workflow.
Okay. But it could be just be interesting, just for me to vibe check, what do I like better? And then I can send the repos to you or something like that, and then I won't tell you like which one were made by Jumbo, and that could be our benchmark basically.
Cool. But if you want to collaborate,
awesome
if you want to collaborate on building a formal benchmark and open sourcing it or something, I don't know if it's 100%, 100% worth your while, because it would need to be sort of memory based and multi-session. I guess the multi-session thing is applicable.
But honestly, I think
it's an extremely hard benchmark to make this one. Just thinking that my brain goes like, how?
But I think, given a vision, a North Star description, that's kind of like the input, right? And then, the thing that is the benchmark, then there's a Ralph loop and some framework for iteratively implementing that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how, what metric to follow, but, I think if you had two solutions that came out of that, you would, if you kind of like A/B tested it with developers, you would get a very interesting benchmark from that.
You can have human evaluation. You can even have like an LLM evaluating it, given like an agent evaluated, given these goals in this North Star, how did this application live up to your expectations, whatever. It will be fun.
We have a benchmark right there.
But benchmarks, they are really hard to have like as an open standard, especially when you have this like there's such a long way between starting something off and then these end goals. I'm not even sure that I think it would be like meaningful to do. But the experiment you're saying is going to be fun anyway.
I don't think it would be meaningful if you want a metric like you can quantitatively measure and that you could do at scale, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Benchmark.
But I think it would be interesting, just vibe check wise, and if you can do this on 2, 3, 4, 5 projects, I think you could very easily convince yourself, at least, or we could convince each other if one method were better than the other. And then the kind of like the benchmark, the benchmark is the lowest kind of the what do you say, like
lowest common denominator.
Yeah, that's just a vanilla Ralph loop. Yeah.
Great.
Yes. Okay.
I like the idea. And this is not adversarial. You should be only playful, but I think I'll kill you in token efficiency.
Yeah. Okay. So that could also be a thing you could measure, right?
Yeah, that's for sure a great one to measure, because that's pretty important, I guess.
Yeah. So the two other things that I think that were building Jumbo that I think have been really crucial is that I provide portability in this memory as well, right? Like in the beginning I was because new models are coming out all the time, so you want to use if you're using Copilot, then either in Visual Studio Code or Copilot CLI, you can switch between GPT, Codex models, Claude, and even Gemini. But that's not going to give you, if you want to experiment with Mistral, Vibe, and some of the other Gemini models, because they're a little bit behind when you're using them through Copilot. But in the beginning, and this landscape is still evolving. We have no idea. It's going to be evolving for a long time. And maybe in the enterprise setting, people are a little bit more static in what they're using. But I don't know what you guys have been like, but I've been using everything. And every time something comes out, I'm checking out Codex or using Codex or using Cloud Code. And it's been great because Jumbo, every time I just open up, Gemini CLI, or Codex CLI, pick up right where I've left off. Like everything is completely synced, and that was in the beginning. Just this portability and allowed me to be flexible and trying new things and staying at the forefront. But now I'm using them in parallel, and the benefit of that is that I don't have to. I can use cheaper models for like the codifying, for example, and I can get some savings there. Or Copilot users are going to pay 3x tax on their Frontier Opus models compared with using latest Codex model, for example. So there, I think, real benefits to being able to use the right model for the job.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Super interesting talk here. I feel like we could go on for another hour because I have questions for all the steps here. But I will try to experiment with putting this into a Ralph loop, and it could be very interesting. So let's stay in touch with that one.
Probably gonna have to have a follow up when we're done with this and have a talk about that.
I'd be happy to do it, and also be happy to find out that you guys were glad to have me back then.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think we're going to wrap it up now. To all of our listeners, I would recommend you go and check out Jumbo CLI on GitHub. It only has 43 stars, I think. That's way too little. We need to bump that up. So please help with that. And then you could go follow Joshua at LinkedIn, right?
You can follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We can leave a link in the show notes, I guess.
Yeah.
The easiest way to find me is probably on GitHub.
Yeah, cool. Before we end, any final what do you say, notes or like
final thoughts?
Final
thoughts, yeah, exactly.
No, this has been a lot of fun. Obviously you found out I like to talk.
Yeah, we do
and
too.
that's good. It's called verbose.
Yeah, that's right. I fit right in.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's been good. I would love to do this in person sometime if that's ever possible. No, it's good. I think maybe one thing personal agenda here, since people are listening and we've got a captive audience, we're living through a time like this is such great change, and it's so exciting. It's really just amazing to just sit and be in wonder of it all. But it's also having a really negative effect on a lot of us and our health. And I think living in Denmark, one of the things I've really benefited from and enjoyed is the healthy approach to life and the balanced approach to life that people maintain, you all maintain here. And, as we're all just getting AI pills and staying up until 3 a.m, I think it's really important that we remember, take breaks, stay in contact with all the things that are really important, your friends, your family, and take care of yourself through all this, and hang on tight because it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, that's very, very good closing thoughts here, and I could not agree more. It's very easy to get stressed up, the agent FOMO, not having an agent running, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You could be more productive right now, right? Yeah. So, we remember to have fun and enjoy it, because that's what we're all here for. So,
great.
Joshua, thank you so much for joining. We need to have you on again soon, and let's make a benchmark and make some open source collaboration. That could be super cool. Also, for our listeners, go in and check Jumbo. That could be that's a really cool project. So, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey.